For more on that, we're now joined by Vuyo Mvoko, our contributing editor covering the Zambian elections. Good evening, Vuyo, and thank you so much for joining us. Vuyo, how well prepared is the Electoral Commission of Zambia for tomorrow's presidential poll?
Well, as I said in that piece, from what they were telling us, it's all systems go. They would not have taken that step of officially opening the the results center if they were not prepared for tomorrow's election. They say they have done everything they could do. Of course, there were a few remaining sort of niggling problems, but they were confident that they were going to be able to deal with those by the end of business today. So everyone is keen to go ahead with tomorrow's election. Political parties were doing their last round, their last push this afternoon up until 6 p.m. That was the cut-off point. So observer missions are here. We spoke, as you saw in that insert, to the AU observer mission being led by former President Hichilema Motlanthe. As we spoke also to the SADC mission, we spoke to other organizations like the Electoral Institute of Southern Africa. All of them are giving this election a thumbs up.
Now, Vuyo, let's speak to what the presidential candidates are promising their people in Zambia. What sort of promises are they making?
There's a bit of a sameness in what they are saying, or in the issues that they are raising, which probably suggests that they are aware of what Zambians actually want. If you listen to Mr. Hichilema, he talks about education, he talks about hunger, he talks about lowering the costs of the cost of living. He talks about traditional leadership and the need for reforms, the need for that institution to be taken care of than is the case at the moment. And if you listen to his rival, Edgar Lungu, you will hear him talking about the very same things, albeit with a bit of a twist, because his tone and his emphasis is more on the lower classes. In other words, he speaks to a constituency in a language that he believes they are going to hear. Whereas Mr. Hichilema seems to be having a bit of a battle in connecting with the masses with the kind of ease that Edgar Lungu seemed to have. But in terms of the issues, they are pretty much on the same, they're dealing with the same issues and they're approaching them pretty much in the same way. You'll recall, of course, that Mr. Hichilema had a bit of a disadvantage because he needs the numbers. But as far as most Zimbabweans, as Zambians are concerned, he is not really their person. We're talking here about the lower classes. So he's been trying very hard, one should perhaps say, to actually speak to them in a language that they understand, whereas Edgar Lungu seemed to be having, seemed to be cruising, so to speak.
Now, Vuyo, what are the ordinary Zambians saying on the ground? Are they looking forward to tomorrow's election?
Well, there's a language that everyone seems to be saying. One group, which is obviously the group that supports Mr. Lungu, says we want the tried and tested leadership to continue what it's been doing. And by continuation, they mean that they supported the former president, Michael Sata. They liked, they loved what he did, and they would want Edgar Lungu to continue from where he left off. Whereas the other group says there's a need for change, and they believe that Mr. Hichilema is that kind of a leader. Now, beyond that kind of language, you don't really get any nuanced views, or you don't get a sense that Zambians are able or willing to go beyond that language, which probably suggests that it's merely a choice of who is best to represent me than real sort of differences between these two front runners.
Vuyo, thank you so much for joining us. That was our contributing editor, Vuyo Mvoko, coming to us live from Lusaka in Zambia, a day ahead of the country's presidential by-election.